forgot about nitrogen, as you would in terms of learning chemistry, did the exams, and I went to university where I met Sarah. And one of the things we did, because we were doing marine biology, was take up sub-aqua, so diving. And that was where I realised even this stuff, this dinitrogen, actually had some interesting effects, including this. So this is nitrogen narcosis. So as you dive down into deeper depths, what happens is you absorb more and more nitrogen, dinitrogen gas, into your blood, and you get narked, you get nitrogen narcosis. It affects some people more than others. It can be quite dangerous. So there are cases where you have divers worrying about the fish you're swimming by and trying to give them air because they're thinking they're going to drown, and then they drown themselves. So thankfully we weren't allowed to do deep dives when we started learning how to dive, but they took us to a recompression chamber. So these chambers are for people who have the bends. So what happens with the bends is if you dive to great depths and you've got lots of nitrogen in your blood and you come back up to the surface too rapidly, the nitrogen can't get back out of your bloodstream fast enough. And so it creates bubbles in your bloodstream which can be fatal and cause you crippling injury and give you the bends. So the recompression chambers put you back down in high pressure to try and dissolve the nitrogen bubbles. So we all went along, not with the bends, but for a night out. So this was our dive club. So we took along we were advised to take toys, we took beach balls and bits of neoprene rubber, and we all went into this big chamber and the pressure started racking up, and it was brilliant because we were all excited about going to deep depths, and we were trying to kind of get them to get deeper. But as we went down, we started getting narcosis, but we could still talk. And I don't know why, no one's ever been able to explain to me, but once we got to about 40 meters depth and we were all a bit narked, everyone spoke in a high-pitched Mancunian accent. None of us from Manchester, but it was one of those medical freaks. And so it was a wonderful experience being narked in that safe environment, then we were brought back up. So that for me was when I first really started thinking about nitrogen, was our safety checks and being narked. But the more I looked into nitrogen, the more I realised that even this form was quite exciting. So if you look at some of the other uses we use dinitrogen for today, it's really important for cryopreservation. So this is a mock-up, I hope. But it's massively important for preserving stem cells, for preserving blood, and there is a company in the US where you can pay to have your body frozen in liquid nitrogen on the basis, this is when you're dead I presume, on the basis that medical science will catch up with what killed you and they will bring you back to life. It's also, if you trawl the bars of Edinburgh tonight, you might find cocktails that use liquid nitrogen to get this kind of effect. So this is the common form of nitrogen, the dinitrogen, but there's a small proportion, a tiny proportion, which is vital for all life on Earth, reactive nitrogen. So DNA, amino acids, all rely on nitrogen and reactive form, but it's really hard to get hold of. It's a rare form of nitrogen. All life on Earth needs it, and so all life on Earth has been fighting a constant battle to get enough. And this is where the story really unfolds in terms of its importance to humankind. So these reactive nitrogen types, one of the ones I'm going to talk about a couple of times is nitrous oxide, laughing gas. And I'll come on to it in terms of its importance to climate change. But this, so after, hopefully when I finish speaking, we've had a few questions, we can go and enjoy a glass of wine. But I like to think, because we're in Edinburgh, the birth of the Enlightenment, that maybe 150, 160 years ago, instead of wine, we would be having nitrous oxide like this. So this would be, there's Sandy there, just kind of directing someone pouring nitrous oxide into one of us. Because they used to have nitrous oxide parties around Edinburgh, so that was the way to kind of have a nice night out. And it obviously has huge health uses in terms of analgesia for, obviously, if you go to the dentist, but particularly for childbirth. It's a fantastic reactive form of nitrous oxide for healthcare. There's so many amazing uses of reactive nitrogen. And this is my dad, this is John, and he'll recognise, do you recognise this spray? Yeah. So this is nitroglycerin. So nitroglycerin you probably recognise as an explosive, but it's a hugely important thing for millions of people in terms of angina relief. So what it does when you spray it under your tongue is essentially it gives your blood stream a shot of nitric oxide. It allows your blood vessels to dilate and it eases the pain from angina. So Dad's a kind of living example for me of how important reactive nitrogen is. It's in so many important, I guess, things in terms of all explosives or bullets. So this is cordite, it's based on reactive nitrogen. And this, I love Google Images, as the carbon masters know. And one of my earliest memories is fireworks night and being in the back garden of my grandparents' house. And the first time I was allowed to get anywhere near fireworks. And it was a box like this. It was a box of standard fireworks. And if you saw them today, you go, they're rubbish. But at the time, they were just amazing, these kind of cylinders that then exploded and gave different lights. And the fundamental element in here, which is causing the explosion, is nitrogen, reactive nitrogen. So nitrogen, for me, was becoming clearer and clearer. You can see my narrative here in terms of how important reactive nitrogen was for my family, but also for me.